So yesterday I see a video from Rick Beato where he's targeting musicians and letting them know about some important trends that are happening across the Billboard charts as it relates to music. And I thought, as I was watching the video, I definitely need to make a video about this because I had so much commentary I wanted to throw at it. And I'm interested to see what you think about it as well. Now, you probably have heard of Rick Beato. He's got over 3 million subscribers on YouTube. He's a music producer and he's been doing this for quite a few many years. My name is Chris Green. I'm 33 years old. I'm a much smaller YouTuber, but all of my content is primarily focused at teaching people how to record their first song in PreSonus Studio One. I went to school for music. I play guitar, drums, bass, just about all the traditional rock band instruments that are out there. So naturally, I'm very interested in what this video has to show. So let me throw out some of the key highlights from the video and we'll talk about it. Be very interested to see what you have to say about it as well. So let me know in the comments section your thoughts. Make sure you hit subscribe on Rick Beato's channel if you haven't already. His video is titled, "If You're a Musician in 2024, You Want to Hear This." So let's take a listen.
Okay, this is going to be an interesting video, I think. There's a company who reached out to me a few months ago. It's called Chart Cipher. And what they do is they use AI and they compile trends based on the Billboard charts. So one of the first things in here is the primary genre trend chart. You'll notice that it says that hip hop at 27% and pop at 27% are the two top genres right now. The next is country at 20%, then rock 19%, R&B is at 9%, Latin is at 6%, and then at the bottom here is dance or electronic music.
There's not too much revelation happening on this chart right here. I very much agree that hip hop, pop, and country seem to be dominating the charts. I don't specifically pull up like Billboard's playlist whenever I'm listening to music. Primarily it's through YouTube or Spotify, but every now and then I do pull up FM radio when I'm driving around. I know it's like a boomer thing. And definitely on FM radio, you're gonna be hard pressed to find anything other than hip hop, pop, and country. I am a little bit surprised I don't see any Christian or praise and worship, or I'm not sure how they would categorize it, but I still think I have a lot of friends and people who listen to K-Love radio. They listen to Christian music all the time. I thought it would be represented at least up there with Latin and dance music, but that's another thing.
If you go to the next chart, this is where it gets interesting, because then you look at essentially 2019 to 2023. So the last 4 years, what the trends are. And you'll notice that this top thing here is hip hop music, which has actually gone down a lot on the charts. It's gone from 53% dominance, then 58% in 2020, but now it's way down to 27%. So hip hop is going down in the way it's represented on the charts. People are less interested in hip hop music.
I'm not a good judge of hip hop or rap music. All I can say is that Kanye West came up pretty recently because he had a Super Bowl ad. And one of the questions that was being asked, I was listening to a podcast and they asked the question of what's the last Kanye West song that you can name by title? And most of us are going back to Kanye West writing the song Stronger. It's been decades since that song came out. So I definitely agree that it seems like hip hop is just getting a lot more diluted, if that's the word. It seems like there are so many more artists and people aren't fixated on one or two artists at one given time. It seems like there's 50 to 100 hip hop artists and they're all fighting over that one spot. And for the most part, again, this is all subjective, but it does sound very similar. If you listen to one hip hop song, any song that was written 3 months before or 3 months after it, they do sound awfully alike. So I can understand people are getting a little bit tired of it. It happens with every genre.
I would say that pop music has stayed relatively the same, 30%, 22 or 23, and then it's back at 27. So, fluctuating between 30% and 23%, let's say, but 27 last year. And then the things that are on the rise are really country and rock seem to be on the rise. It says right here, since 2022 to 2023, country has moved from 8% up to 20% of its representation on the Billboard charts. That's a 150% increase. That's massive. I've noticed this when I do the top 10 Spotify countdowns, that there's a lot of country songs on the charts now that there never were before, right? Rock has moved up from 12% to 19%. That's a 58% increase, which is cool. And like I said, hip hop is down 37%, as you can see here.
So what this chart is telling me is that hip hop seems to be going down, country and rock seem to be going up. And I wonder primarily how much of this is being influenced by live performances. Because the question I have for you, when you go to a concert or you go to a live performance, do you get necessarily excited when you find out that the band is using tracks? People are using Ableton Live, people are using loops and things that aren't being performed on stage. You kind of feel like you're being cheated. This is not necessarily hip hop, although I think hip hop and rap music necessarily, a lot of what they're doing is they hit spacebar on Ableton or they have somebody in the back running all their tracks for them. I was also at a rock concert where there was no bass player on the stage, and yet I'm hearing full-on bass guitar coming out of the speakers. Well, that's because their bass player got sick and they decided to use Ableton Live to play bass for them. I think the world is kind of craving for something that's a little bit more genuine, something that's a little more authentic, because we would rather go to a live performance with the excitement of we're seeing somebody perform something that may or may not go as well as it did in the studio. We would rather have that authenticity than to just go and listen to somebody singing to a track, or worse yet, if the whole performance, the singing and the music is all coming from somebody's laptop, we feel like we're being cheated, because you can go to shows and stuff because you want to see your favorite rapper, you want to see your favorite country singer, but there's something special about being at a live performance, seeing and hearing people perform live. It's very different than some of this other stuff. So I think that's probably represented in the charts. When you think about live music, people are probably just getting tired of tracks for the most part.
As you can see here, I think people are getting tired of hip hop. I noticed that the trap beats, that drum sound that you used to hear constantly on the chart when I started doing these top 10 countdowns a few years ago, really has disappeared. I think people are just bored with it. And then if that's going to come down, something's going to replace it. And it seems to be rock and country are moving up. Okay, the next chart that I think is interesting here is instrument prevalence trends. So it says here, almost all streaming hits contain primarily drums and bass. Of course, we know that. The prominent use of guitar surged to the highest level in over a decade. This is due in part to both the rise in country and rock, as we just said in the last segment. Conversely, the use of piano has been on the decline. Okay, pretty interesting. If you look at the chart, you'll see this instrument prevalence here, with the bass is in this mauve color, whatever this is, kind of purplish. Then the drums are in yellow, guitar is in red, and piano at 16% is in green. Okay.
Like just over the past 10 years or so, you definitely heard more piano back in the days of like Drops of Jupiter and early 2000s rock music than you did over the past 10 years. The past 10 years, we almost turned pianos instantly. We turned them into synthesizers, pads, and strings. So people are playing MIDI instruments, but the piano is not, like this chart says, the piano is not a prominent instrument in the music.
Okay, so to put it more succinctly, the use of the guitar on songs that are on the Billboard charts from 2022 to 2023 has gone up 56%, and the use of the piano has gone down 41%. Now, I guess people are not taking piano lessons. Actually, that's kind of a joke because the piano is all MIDI anyways. Okay, the next chart that I think is really interesting is this tempo trends. In the last 4 years, or from 2019 to 2023, it appears like songs are getting slower. There's been an increase of songs that are slower than 79 BPM by 23%, and songs that are between 100 and 119 BPM have decreased by 24%. So when I think about the charts that we've listened to over the last couple of years, it does seem like songs have gotten slower, or they're at least all mid-tempo songs. The only song that pops into my head is that Olivia Rodrigo song.
We had a choir director in school, and often he would set the tempo to a lot of these older classical pieces. He would set them based off of his heart rate, because typically a resting heart rate for a human being is usually between 60 and 70 beats per minute. Now, it can depend on your weight and everything like that. For instance, like when I go to the gym, if I'm on an elliptical, I'll get my heart rate up to 140 and 150. Well, What does that have to do with the tempo? Well, a lot of times he would set the tempo based off of the resting heart rate, because if you're aiming for 60 to 70 beats per minute and you know what your resting heart rate is, you could almost use your heart as a click track. There's also something that happens, or this was the belief of the choir director. He was believing that when your tempo is more closely aligned with your heart rate, there's less of this conflict happening. So when you hear faster music and that bass is pounding at 120 or 130 beats per minute, there's something in you that makes you start almost sweating, because your body is thinking, I must be exercising. If you're up in the 130, 140 range, that's typically like you're exerting yourself in exercise. So it's more comfortable to be down in like 70, 80 beats per minute, if anything, just because that's where our resting heart rate is. I also think that that makes sense to me. I wouldn't say that when we're going through songs and stuff, I didn't feel different or I wasn't aware of that being a change. But back to the authenticity, I think that's what people are craving. People don't want to be on edge. People don't want to be anxietous. We always hear things about mental health and all this, and people want to avoid being stressed out. Well, how do you handle being stressed out? The old stereotype would be you go outside and you sit next to just a flowing stream or a river, okay? You try to remove yourself from the things that are panicky, the things that are pounding you over and over again. So you would use fast tempo music if you're a dancer. If you're dancing at a club or something, you would use fast music if you want to get people excited about something. But when you're listening to music at home and maybe you're reading a book or you're just relaxing, rarely is it going to be up-tempo music. So I think that's the way the culture is going. I think the culture, in the strive to have more genuine, authentic experiences, we're craving more instruments because we're perceiving the instruments as being, okay, somebody is playing that instrument. We're also craving something that's not so panicky, and that could tie in with the tempo as well. And there's one more thing he talks about a little bit near the end that I want to comment on as well.
The next chart I find really interesting, because I've noticed this when I look at the charts, that songs have less profanity in them. 61% of songs in the Billboard charts in 2023 have no profanity in them. 32% have some, and only 7% have frequent. So a really interesting trend is that songs that use no profanity are at the same level that they were in 2014. I don't know what that means.
So my idea when it comes to profanity, it really could tie into some of the guidelines that we saw recently in YouTube. So on YouTube, when you got your video demonetized, you could get your video demonetized if you cussed or you had some sort of profanity within like the first 10 or 30 seconds of your video. So people adapted to this. People who are used to cussing and profanity and live streams or whatever, if they're doing a video, it was like this rule where they tried to make it within the first 30 or 60 seconds, whatever that parameter was set by YouTube and Google. They basically decided you can't cuss within that parameter and still be monetized. So a lot of people just stopped cussing. Well, then I believe the rule changed even further. So basically it was not just the first 60 seconds, not just the first 30 seconds of your video. If you had any excessive profanity in your video in its entirety, that video would either get demonetized or removed. So think about how that would influence people who make YouTube videos, people who upload music. If you have hip hop and rap music that's profoundly using profanity, if hip hop and rap music are by far using the most profanity than any other genre, okay, that's pretty expected. If they're having to stay within these constraints of 30 seconds of your music, the first intro can't have any profanity in it, then that's going to negatively affect that genre of music. So overall, this video over and over again is making me think that this is a good sign. And I don't say that just being like a guitar player who's really excited that rock music and country music are making some sort of comeback. I believe that everything is cyclical. So in history, if there's some sort of genre that's really cool, it's really modern, just like with clothing, okay? There's gonna be fads, there's gonna be things that are really exciting at the moment, then they're not gonna be cool anymore for a time, and then they'll start being cool again. Haven't you seen mom jeans, okay? Mom jeans were a thing, they became not a thing, they made fun of it on Saturday Night Live and programs like that, and now everybody's wearing mom jeans. Well, it's the same thing with music. So what does that mean for us? Well, that means for us is like, I can keep making videos. I can keep making videos encouraging people to record music at home, even if it's something with drums and real guitars, real singing. It's all exciting stuff because I've always believed it was cyclical, but it's neat to see this represented in some of the charts and trends happening in music. So case in point, I'm excited as a musician for what's going to happen in this next phase or this next cycle of music trends. I encourage everyone that if you've been hesitating on picking up an instrument, learning how to play guitar, or even the piano, you know, the piano, as you can see, was dying off just right there. Well, it will come back at some point in time. I don't know when that's going to be, but you don't want to miss out an opportunity for you to record and make the music that you like to make. All right, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.